I remember the night I was ordained. I walked out of the sanctuary and a retired pastor came up to me. And the retired pastor said, "Now it's your turn. It's your turn to go and tell the good news." Well, friends, I have good news for us today. We've been celebrating and celebrating God in so many creative ways and in different ways over the pandemic. And I'm excited to invite you to a whole new phase as we continue to find our way through this. We're going to continue to do church online, but on June 14th, we're going to open up this sanctuary, open up the Great Hall, and invite those of you who are ready to come and worship with us. It's good news. But you know what the other part of the good news is that everyone is still invited. We've been doing church. We haven't missed a Sunday where we've celebrated the presence of God in our lives. Even though that might mean that God came while you were in your pajamas, and that might mean that for some of you it's time to put makeup and get ready back again and get your Sunday best on to come back to church. Wherever you find yourself in the midst of this pandemic, we want to invite you to the same story of Jesus that continues to change our lives. A good friend of mine told me just a few weeks ago, she reminded me of what kind of situation we're in. We're all in a storm, and we're all on different kind of boats as we find our way through the storm. For some of you, it's time. You've been waiting, and you're healthy, and you're ready to come back to church, and you can, and you're able to come back to church. And so we're going to invite you to do that on June 14th. It's going to look a little different because the world still looks a little different. And so we're going to invite you to come in, and we're going to send those instructions out on Monday. For some of you, it's not time yet. You're in a different kind of boat in the middle of this storm. And maybe you've got an immunocompromised situation in your life. Maybe someone you know or you love is immunocompromised, and you can't be in a large crowd. And so we're going to invite you to stay home. Because here's the thing. We're still worshiping Jesus. We're still inviting the presence of God into our life. And so wherever you find yourself today, we're still doing church together. And I want you to feel that and know that our love together as the pastors and the staff of this church, we're going to love you wherever you are. Now, if you're coming, let's talk about some of the differences just for a minute. I remember when I was in Longview and I was a kid and I was driving down the road, it was January, and we were going home that night from some event we've done, and my dad pulls off into Target. And we asked him, "Dad, why are you going to Target?" He said, I'm going to buy a coat. I look around and everybody in the family is wearing a coat. And I said, "Dad, we all have coats. Why can't we just go home?" He said, "We have coats. But that lady over there that we passed on the road, she doesn't have one." So we all went in as a family and bought a coat, got back into the car and drove back to the lady. And as we're driving back, I said to my dad, "Dad, what's she going to do with a coat when it gets warm? She doesn't have a coat rack to hang it on." He said, "That's not what matters. What matters is tonight it's cold and she needs it." And we got out of the car, gave her the coat, prayed for her, and we drove home. Today we're going to ask you to do something different. Some of us are healthy and some of us aren't worried about wearing masks in the grocery stores or in academy or wherever you find yourself. And those are different situations because we're not sitting in the same room for almost an hour together. But what we're going to ask you to do is to put a mask on as you come to church because we're worried about the people that don't know that they're immunocompromised. We're worried about the people that need us to be safe in the midst of all of this crisis. We're worried about loving our neighbor like Jesus told us, or how Mr. Wesley told us way back in the day to do no harm whatever we can do for people. Today is that day, and so for the next several weeks, it's not going to be cold for forever. In fact, August is coming, and it's Texas. But for the next few weeks, as we continue to try to protect our immunocompromised people, we're going to ask you to wear a mask when you are in the building of the church. And we're going to sing, and we're going to listen to the organ, and we're going to listen to the band across the street, and we're going to celebrate church together. And we're going to celebrate church together with all the people that aren't able to come yet and all the people that are here. And we're going to continue to be A&M United Methodist Church. And friends, can I tell you that in the midst of this pandemic, our church has been interrupted. And we'll remember it as a historic moment in the life of A&M UMC. But can I tell you, for the last several months, there are parts of this church, the community of this church, it's never been stronger. Because God's story has continued to be told, We're continuing to tell it to all the people who listen. We're going to continue to be creative and continue to find ways to bring us all together in the name of Jesus Christ. So I invite you this Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday, wherever you find yourselves. If you find yourself together on the couch still in your pajamas, or if you find yourself here on University Drive in College Station, Texas, wherever you are, let's continue to be the church. And let's continue to let God tell God's story in the midst of all of us.